Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me for another Alfred Hitchcock Presents review. Today I will be talking about Season 3, Episode 1, The Glass Eye, starring Jessica Tandy as Julia and William Shatner as Jim. And I have to say, Season 3 is off to a great start, as The Glass Eye is one of the best Alfred Hitchcock Presents episodes I have seen. I think overall in the series up to this point. And the ending actually kind of fooled me. This episode has a twist that works very, very well overall. So we start with a couple, Dorothy and Jim, and it turns out that Jim's cousin Julia has passed away and he's going through her things, and he will be our narrator in this episode, which works very, very well. And he comes across this glass eye and he's going to tell Dorothy the story about how Julia uh, got this item. So we get some info on Julia as now we flash back to the past. It turns out she's single. And she kind of misses the fact she never fell in love, never got married, even though a lot of people around her did. So she's basically, a lonely lady, I guess is a good way to say it. So the next scene, we see Julia at this music hall. She's babysitting a kid who's thirsty all the time, which was kind of interesting. But more important to the plot is that she sees this performance of a ventriloquist named Max. And this guy's a pretty good ventriloquist, I have to say. And Julia is immediately into this guy, but as is usual on Alfred Hitchcock Presents, everything is not as it seems. So Julia goes to see Max again later that day, free of the kid at this point, thank goodness. She goes by herself, and she's really even more into this guy Max, and we find out the dummy's name is George as well, which is somewhat significant. So at this point, Jim tells us that Julia is dreaming of marrying Max, which seems a little bit abrupt, but the episode made it believable. You just have to go with it. So we go back to Jim and Dorothy, and we get to see more of Max's things, which was kind of interesting. It's like a poster and things like that. I did think the middle of the episode was maybe a little bit slightly too deliberate, but the episode builds up to a good climax, so it's worth it. I just thought the pacing could have been slightly better here. So at this point, we go back to the past, and Julia wants to meet Max. She's been going to see all his performances, which that's quite a few, it seems like. At least the episode tells us that. So she writes Max these letters, and he writes back to her. But it seems they can't really meet because Max doesn't really like to see anyone, which we'll find out why at the end of the episode. So eventually, Julia's persistence pays off, and Max writes her a letter saying they can meet for a short time. So Julia prepares. I mean, she really prepares for quite a long time. But eventually, she does get to go on her visit to see Max. So at this point, they chat. And Max says he loves Julia's devotion. And he tells her he's lonely, and she can obviously relate to that. So it seems like they would make a good couple. But right before she's ready to leave, she can't help herself. She goes to kiss his hand, and that's when everything falls apart. Quite literally, actually. So the big reveal in this episode is basically that Max was the dummy the whole time and George was the ventriloquist with a mask on. And I have to say, I was genuinely surprised by the ending. I really didn't see this one coming. But it's also kind of sad when you think about it because Julia had all her dreams and hopes resting on meeting up with Max, and obviously her dreams didn't work out the way she wanted them to. And you realize that all she really had as a keepsake from this guy was a glass eye. And then we also learn as we go back to Jim and Dorothy at the end of the episode that Max never performed in public again. But there's a tale or a legend out there that kind of says that maybe he was with a traveling circus. So it turns out that Max was probably pretty lonely as well. So like I said, this episode works as a shocking and a sad episode. Overall, definitely a great episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents. I did feel that the middle of the episode might have been slightly overplayed for dramatic effect, a little deliberate, but that's a small nitpick in an otherwise great episode. And I'm going to give The Glass Eye a 4.5 out of 5. And I do feel like this is an essential episode for fans of the series to watch. So 4.5 out of 5 for The Glass Eye. And as always, thank you very much for watching.